He said he just needed a place to crash. I thought I was helping an old friend. Weeks later, he had my job, my name, and nearly ruined my life. You won't believe how. You ever let someone into your life thinking you were doing them a favor, only to find out they were the wrecking ball to everything you had built? That is what this story is. A slow unraveling. A lesson in how good intentions can drag you straight to hell. It started with a knock on my apartment door. It was early September, hot enough that the AC was wheezing like a dying dog, but not so hot that you could justify calling it in for repairs. I had just gotten home from my job at the warehouse. Manual work, nothing glamorous, but steady, and there he was. Derek, my old friend from high school. I had not seen him in years. Not since he dropped out after junior year and bounced around a few cities. I had not thought about him much since, but seeing him on my doorstep with that same crooked grin and a duffel bag slung over his shoulder punched a hole right through my chest. Nostalgia is a hell of a drug. He looked rough, skinny, like he had not eaten in days. Pale, big bags under his eyes, like sleep was something he used to know but had not seen in a while. He said his girl kicked him out, said he had nowhere else to go. No job, no car, no friends who had not blocked him already. He said, "You are all I got, man." I should have asked more questions. Should have looked a little harder at the duffel bag, at the way his smile never quite reached his eyes. But instead, I stepped aside and let him in. The first few days were fine. He crashed on the couch, kept mostly to himself, said he was trying to get his head right. I bought us groceries. We watched old horror movies. He told me he was clean now, said he had burned too many bridges and was trying to start over. I believed him, and that was my first mistake. By the end of the first week, the vibe had shifted. It was small stuff at first. Derek started leaving dishes in the sink. No big deal. We were both guys, both a little lazy. I figured he would get to them eventually. Then came the long showers that drained the hot water. The late-night pacing in the kitchen. The whispery phone calls behind closed doors that stopped the second I walked in. But the one that really stuck with me? One morning, I noticed a 20 from my wallet was gone. I keep my cash folded behind my ID. Always have. It is just a habit, something I picked up from my dad. And I knew. It was there the night before. I stared at my wallet for a solid minute, trying to talk myself out of the obvious. Maybe I had spent it and forgot. Maybe it fell. Maybe anything but what I knew deep down had happened. Derek came out of the bathroom right then, rubbing his face, hair wet, acting like everything was normal. He saw me standing there, frozen with my wallet open, and asked if I was okay. I just said, yeah, just tired. Because what else do you say? Hey, did you steal from me while I was asleep? That is not something you accuse someone of unless you are sure. And I was not ready to believe it. Not yet. I told myself he was going through a hard time. That maybe he borrowed it and forgot to ask. I even tried to convince myself I was misremembering where I left the cash. But the doubt was there now. Quiet. Persistent. Like a low hum in the background of every moment. Then came the job leads. I printed out a few postings I saw online. Stockroom assistant, delivery driver, even a part-time gig at the gas station down the street. Told him, might be worth checking these out. He smiled, said he would get on it, then spent the rest of the day watching TV in his boxers, chain-smoking, and texting someone nonstop. I wanted to say something, really say it, but I did not. I kept swallowing the frustration like it was my job, because in my head, I kept hearing this voice. He is your friend. He needs you right now. You are just being impatient. It felt easier to blame myself than admit that maybe, just maybe, I had made a terrible mistake letting him back in. And that mistake? It was about to start unraveling everything. It was a Friday night when things started to really go sideways. I had just gotten home from work. My boots were caked in warehouse dust, back aching, arms sore from unloading pallets all day. All I wanted was a shower, some leftovers, and a quiet night to decompress. But when I stepped into the apartment, something felt off. The living room reeked like weed and cheap cologne. Music thumped faintly from the back, not loud enough to be a party, but just enough to irritate the nerves. I walked in and saw two strangers, some guy slouched on my couch, shoes on the cushion, and a girl I had never seen before flipping through the remote like she lived there. Derek came out of the kitchen holding 3 beers. Yo, hope you do not mind, he said, handing them each a bottle. Figured we could chill tonight. My people are cool. He said it like I was a guest in his place. I gave him this long stare, The kind you give someone when you are not sure if they are joking or just wildly unaware. But he just smiled, oblivious or pretending to be. I wanted to lose it right then. Wanted to throw everyone out and remind Derek that he was crashing on my couch, eating my food, using my damn toilet paper. But something in me froze up. That part of me that always tries to keep the peace. I just nodded stiffly and headed for the bathroom. In there, I sat on the edge of the tub for a while, staring at the floor. Why was I letting this happen? Why was I walking on eggshells in my own home? Later that night, after they left, I asked Derek not to bring random people over without a heads up. He shrugged and said, "You used to be more chill, man. What happened to you?" That one stung, because he knew exactly where to hit. He knew the guilt I carried about growing up, about leaving behind the old crowd. He said it like I had betrayed something. I did not say much after that, just turned off the lights and went to bed. But I barely slept. My mind kept spinning. The red flags were turning into road flares. But I still clung to this warped sense of loyalty, like I owed him something for the memories we used to share. That was the first night I locked my bedroom door, and I wish I could say it was the last. By the third week, the place stopped feeling like mine. There were shoes by the front door that I did not recognize, fast food bags piling up on the counter, empty cans stuffed between the couch cushions. It was like Derek had taken root and started growing a new version of home, one where I was just a roommate with a job and a fridge to raid. He was sleeping all day, staying up all night, watching shows at full volume while I was trying to get a few hours of sleep before a 6 a.m. shift. Every time I asked if he had looked into jobs, he gave me some vague answer about talking to a guy or waiting on a call. And then my manager at work called me into his office. He shut the door and told me someone had called the warehouse earlier that week, pretending to be me, asking about my schedule. The guy on the phone was rude and asked if I was still making that kind of money. I felt my stomach drop. There were only a handful of people who even knew where I worked, Derek being one of them. But when I asked him about it later that night, he acted surprised, said it must have been a scammer, swore up and down he would never do something like that. But his eyes twitched when he said it. He was always a decent liar, but never good enough to hide that little flicker of panic when he got cornered. Still, I said nothing. I nodded. I told him I believed him, because deep down, I was afraid of what it would mean if I didn't believe him. If I said it out loud, then it was real. Then I was the idiot who let a thief and a liar into his house and handed him a key. That night, I could not sleep. I stared at the ceiling and thought about all the ways trust can rot. It never starts with a fire. It starts with a leak, a drip, a damp spot behind the walls. And by the time you see the mold, it is already too late. The next morning, my laptop was gone. Derek said he had not seen it, claimed maybe I brought it to work, or maybe I misplaced it. But I had left it on the table the night before. I knew that for sure. I tore through the apartment, checked every drawer, under every couch cushion, every inch of my locked room, just to be sure I had not lost my mind. Nothing. He watched me with this blank expression, calm, unbothered. And that was when I knew he had taken it. I did not have proof. No camera. No eyewitness. Just a gut feeling deep enough to make my teeth hurt. But still, I did nothing. Because somehow, even in that moment, I was still scared of looking like the bad guy. And I had no idea just how far this was about to go. A few days after the laptop vanished, things got quiet. Too quiet. Derek stopped lounging in the living room. Stopped watching TV at full blast. Started disappearing for hours at a time without saying a word. When I asked where he had been, he just muttered something about figuring things out and shut himself in the bathroom for half an hour. Then, on Thursday, I came home to find the door unlocked. That might sound small, but I never leave my door unlocked. It is just something drilled into me from living in places where people check for easy handles at 2 in the morning. I walked in slow, half expecting to find someone inside. But the place was empty, Derek's bag still sitting by the couch, his shoes by the door. Nothing seemed missing at first. But then I noticed the envelope on the table. It was addressed to me, my name written in sloppy black marker. Inside were 2 things. 1, a crumpled up check, my paycheck, the one I had not even seen yet. I always got paid direct deposit, so this made no sense. It was wrinkled, stained, and endorsed on the back in handwriting that was not mine. 2, a sticky note with a phone number and the words, "Call for job info." Mention me. I sat down, heart pounding, trying to make sense of it. Who had this check belong to? How did it end up here, looking like someone tried to cash it and failed? When I finally got through to my bank, they confirmed it. Someone had attempted to deposit a fake check using my name 2 days earlier. And the worst part? The check was printed on the same kind of paper I kept in my bedroom drawer. The drawer Derek had access to. I confronted him the minute he walked in, holding the envelope in my hand. He did not even flinch. Instead, he laughed, said, "You really think I am that dumb?" I stood there, shaking, holding the evidence. Then explained this. He shrugged. "You left your stuff lying around. Maybe someone else grabbed it. Maybe a neighbor. You sure you locked the door?" Just like that, he turned it back on me. Made me question myself. Made me feel like maybe I was the one being paranoid. But my gut? It was screaming now. That night, I hid my wallet in my pillowcase. Slept in jeans with my phone in my pocket. I had started to live like a stranger in my own home. And then, the next morning, I got a call from a job I had applied to the week before. I thought they were calling for an interview. Instead, the voice on the other end said, "We received a concerning message about you from someone claiming to be a former roommate. Said you have issues with money." With honesty. I sat there, stunned. I had not listed Derek as a reference. Hell, I never mentioned him at all. But he knew where I had applied. He had seen the papers. He must have gone through my stuff. That was when it hit me. This was not some petty theft. This was sabotage. And whatever game Derek was playing, it was just getting started. I wanted to scream. I had spent the last few years clawing my way back from a rough past, bad decisions, burned bridges, nights I do not even remember. Getting clean, holding a steady job, fixing my credit, none of it came easy. Every little win felt like it took a chunk of me to earn. And now, Derek was dragging it all into the dirt. Quietly, behind my back, smiling the whole time. I called the job recruiter back and tried to explain. Said I had no idea who contacted them. I told them it was all a lie. The woman on the phone sounded polite, professional, but I could hear it in her tone. The damage was already done. The opportunity was gone. That night, I sat in my room, lights off, staring at the cracks in the ceiling. I could hear Derek in the living room, laughing at something on his phone, just carrying on like he had not just torn a hole in my future. And it hit me, I was scared of him. Not because he was violent, but because he knew too much. Because he could take everything I had worked for and ruin it with a phone call, a casual lie, a forged check. Because I had let him in. I thought about kicking him out. I even packed up his bag while he was asleep. Set it by the door. Typed out a message in my notes app like a script, something firm but calm. But when I opened the door the next morning, the bag was gone. Like it had never been there. Instead, he was sitting at the table eating my leftovers. Scrolling through my tablet. Wearing my hoodie. He looked up and said, "We good." Just like that. No apology. No explanation. Just those 2 words that sounded more like a dare than a question. I nodded. Because I had reached the part where fear looks like silence. Where your throat tightens every time you even think about standing up for yourself. And deep down, I hated myself for it. That night, while he was out, I checked the apartment Wi-Fi logs. Something I never thought I would have to do. But I needed answers. And what I found, it made my blood run cold. He had been logging into old email accounts. Ones I forgot even existed. Ones tied to my past, court stuff, recovery forums, stuff I had buried. He must have reset the passwords using my laptop before it disappeared. He was going through my digital footprint, scraping what he could use. Old debts, old relapses, names, places, anything he could twist if he ever needed leverage. He was not just crashing on my couch. He was building ammo. And I knew. I had to do something. Fast. Because the next hit? It was coming. I waited until Sunday. That was the day I knew he would be out for a few hours. He always disappeared around noon. Said he was meeting someone about work. I doubted that was ever true, but I needed the time. I packed up everything important. ID, bank cards, birth certificate, even the old shoebox full of letters and stuff I never wanted to explain to anyone. I backed up every file I still had access to, changed every password, set up two-step on everything. Then I walked into the living room and stared at the couch where Derek had spent the last month sinking into my life like a parasite. And I waited. When he came back, he looked buzzed. Maybe something stronger than that. His eyes were glassy, and he reeked of that sharp, chemical smell I remembered too well from the worst years of my life. He dropped his keys on the table and flopped into the recliner like he owned the place. I stayed standing. I told him he had 48 hours to get out. He laughed. Actually laughed. Said, "You're kicking me out? After everything I've done for you." That part made me snap. I do not even know what I said exactly. Just a flood of words about the stolen laptop, the fake check, the job I lost, the emails he broke into. I laid it all out, voice shaking, hands clenched so tight my knuckles turned white. And Derek? He just sat there, calm as a priest. Then he said the one thing I will never forget. You think anyone's going to believe you over me? That is when I realized this was never just about a place to crash. It was control, power, a twisted kind of revenge for something I never even understood. Maybe jealousy. Maybe he saw the life I had built, brick by brick, and wanted to watch it crumble just because he could. I told him I had already filed a police report, that I had screenshots, that I was done being afraid. That is when his mask slipped. His voice dropped low, almost flat, like he was trying to keep something buried. He said, "You always thought you were better than me. Just wait. You'll see what it feels like when no one picks up the phone. When people cross the street to avoid you. You forgot where you came from. I'm just here to remind you." He stood up and got real close. Close enough I could smell the lie on his breath. I did not move. He finally grabbed his keys and muttered, "You'll regret this." Then he walked out. And this time, he took his bag with him. The next few days were a blur. I kept expecting him to come back. Every creak in the hallway made my heart jump. I checked the locks twice, sometimes 3 times. I kept the blinds closed. Slept with the lights on. I felt like prey in my own home. But Derek never returned. Instead, he left behind something worse, a mess I could not see until it started swallowing me. On Monday, my debit card got flagged. The bank froze my account, said there had been suspicious charges out of state. A motel in Kansas. A gas station in New Mexico. Someone had swiped my info and was taking it for a cross-country joyride. I knew who it was. Even told the fraud rep on the phone. But they needed proof. And I had none. Then on Wednesday, I got an email from HR. Some anonymous complaint had been submitted to my employer. Said I was unfit for warehouse leadership. That I had a history of substance abuse and recent theft accusations. The language was sharp, specific enough to sound real. The company did not fire me, but they put me on leave while they looked into it. And just like that, my routine, my paycheck, my stability was gone. Everything I had worked to build was unraveling, thread by thread, and Derek was pulling the string from somewhere far away, smiling in the dark. I sat on the floor of my apartment, phone in my lap, trying to think of one person I could call. One person who would pick up and believe me. And that is when I realized something that knocked the wind out of me. He had isolated me. Little by little, over those weeks, he had turned people against me. Casual conversations with old friends that suddenly went cold. Mutuals from back home who stopped replying. At first, I thought life was just pulling us in different directions. But now I knew. Derek had been poisoning the well. And then, the phone rang. Blocked number. I almost let it go to voicemail. But I picked up. It was his ex, the one he said had kicked him out, the one who supposedly wrecked his life. Her voice was low, tired, worn down in a way I recognized instantly. She said, "I do not know you, but I figured you should hear this. He used your name. On paperwork. An old lease. You're listed as a co-signer. I only found out after he skipped out on 3 months' rent." My mouth went dry. I never signed anything. Never even saw the place she was talking about. She said, "He told me you were his cousin. Said you were vouching for him." I felt my pulse in my throat. She said she had tried to press charges but got stonewalled because everything looked legitimate on paper. Even showed up with a forged signature, my name. I told her I was dealing with the same thing. Probably worse. And then, before hanging up, she said something I will never forget. He does not just burn bridges. He builds them out of people like you so he can walk over them. Click. Silence. I sat there in the dark, realizing just how deep the hole was. And the worst part? I had no idea how far down it went. I spent the next 48 hours unraveling everything. I pulled my credit reports. There were 2 new accounts opened in my name. One was a furniture rental. The other was a payday loan I had never touched. I filed a police report, printed everything, and started building a case. I felt like I was fighting a ghost. One that looked like someone I used to trust. That weekend, I went to the bar down the street. I was not drinking, just needed the noise, the hum of other people. I was halfway through a soda when someone tapped me on the shoulder. It was Mason, a guy I had not seen since high school. We were never close, but we had run with the same circles. He gave me a look, kind of awkward, like he was debating whether to say something. Then he said, "Hey man, sorry about the job. I heard what happened." I asked what he meant. He said he had run into Derek a week ago. Said Derek told him I got busted for stealing from work, that I was back on stuff and spiraling hard. I felt the blood drain from my face. Mason went on, told me Derek had been showing people screenshots of text messages. Said he had proof I was unreliable, that I had been manipulating people, that I had stolen his laptop, not the other way around. But the kicker? Derek had told them I was the one who begged him to stay, that I could not handle being alone, that I used him to get by. He had flipped the entire narrative, and people were buying it. That was the moment it all clicked. The phone call to my job, the sabotaged reference, the fake emails, the timing of everything. It had never been random. This had been a long game, a setup, not just theft or manipulation revenge. For what? I still do not fully understand. Maybe I reminded him of the version of himself he hated. Maybe my getting back on track made him feel smaller. Or maybe some people just want to take what you have because they see you holding it steady and they are still drowning. I thanked Mason for telling me, even though it felt like someone had ripped a hole straight through my chest. On the walk home, it hit me. I could not fix this. Not all of it. Some people would always believe the version of me Derek created, the one that matched his story better than the truth. And that night, I made a decision, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. I called my landlord, told her I was breaking the lease, packed what little I had, found a cheap room an hour away, closer to a different warehouse job I had quietly applied to. I left no forwarding address, no social media update, no goodbye, just a locked door behind me and the echo of a voice I would never let inside again. I wish I could say moving on was clean, that packing my bags and leaving town wiped the slate. It didn't. Some damage lingers like smoke, gets into your clothes, your lungs, even your memories. The new job was quieter. Night shifts. Just me and a forklift in a big, cold warehouse that never asked questions. And I liked it that way. I stayed off social media, changed my number, started fresh, even grew a beard, like changing my reflection might erase the version of me Derek tried to sell to the world. But some nights, I still thought about him. About that first day, when he showed up on my doorstep, broken and smiling. About how I opened the door like an idiot thinking I was helping an old friend. About how I ignored the red flags because I wanted to believe the past we shared was enough to trust the man in front of me. He taught me something, not in the way friends should, but in the way mistakes do. He taught me that not everyone who needs you deserves you. That sometimes the people closest to your history are the biggest threats to your future. And that loyalty, when not returned, is just self-destruction in disguise. About 2 months after I moved, I got a letter. No return address. Just my name. Inside was a single Polaroid. Me and Derek, back when we were 17, standing in front of an old gas station, middle fingers up, dumb grins on our faces. Back when the world felt small and wide all at once. Scrawled on the back in his handwriting. No hard feelings. Just different rules. I burned it. Not out of rage, but to make sure that whatever game he thought we were still playing ended right there. About 3 months later, I got a call from the detective I had filed the report with. They had traced one of the fake accounts to an IP address tied to a motel outside Flagstaff. Derek had used my name again, this time for a rental car he never returned. A warrant was issued, but the guy was slippery. Vanished before they could pick him up. The officer told me I might never get full closure. But if he ever slipped up again, the trail would lead straight back to him. And that was enough. I was done chasing ghosts. Some stories don't end with justice. Some just end with a locked door and a life rebuilt from scratch. And I wish I could tell you that was the end of it. Maybe it was. Maybe he is still out there, looking for his next couch to crash on, his next name to use, his next story to rewrite. But he will not find mine again. Because I learned the hardest way. You do not rebuild your life by letting ghosts sleep on your couch. You rebuild it by closing the door and locking it for good. If this story hit home, drop a comment and hit subscribe. See you in the next one.